Welcome to Life Science Success Podcast. My name is Don. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a consultant in life sciences. And today I am broadcasting live from Bio from the Bayou. I'm so excited to get to be here and also very excited to get to introduce my next guest, who is Chris Garabedian. He is the CEO of Xontogeny. So welcome, Chris.
Thanks. Good to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, thanks so much. So can you tell listeners just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I have a 30-plus year career in biopharmaceutical development. I started in consulting, advising pharmaceutical companies. I then went to Abbott Labs Pharmaceuticals, now it's known as AbbVie. And that's where I really started working with the R&D side of the organization and figuring out, what our good drug development programs look like, what are the right go-no-go decisions. And from there, I entered the area of biotech. And so I joined Gilead Sciences in their earlier days. And was there about 8 years and served in a lot of roles, medical affairs, commercial development, business development, corporate development, M&A, strategic planning. After there, I was at Celgene as head of corporate strategy and doing a lot of the same types of corporate development work, some M&A, some strategic planning, chair of the portfolio review committee. And from there, I was on the board of a public company that had been around for 30 years and didn't have much success. So I orchestrated a turnaround of what at the time the company was called AVI Biopharma, and I renamed the company Sarepta. I moved it to Boston, Cambridge, and I focused them on Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Today, Sarepta is a $10 billion valued company, and they have 3 drugs approved for Duchenne and another one that was part of a research project I started that has a better chemistry in the clinic. So, and then I left Sarepta in 2015, and I entered the investment side, but I kind of consider myself a drug developer who invests as opposed to a biotech investor, and that's because we play a very active hands-on role with the companies we invest in and work with them week to week, whatever it takes to make sure they're guided properly, that they're making the right decisions. And that's why we don't care that you have 20 or 30 years of industry experience. You can be a first-time CEO early in your career as long as you're willing to work with us, and we can collaborate and we do mentorship and advisement, and they learn a lot from what good looks like in drug development from working with us.
Yeah, it's so important to have, companies that are incubators, that are in depth, that have experience and things like that that they can provide to people as well. Does your company also provide facilities or help arrange companies so that they have?
So we can do company creation. We have one company that's in stealth. It's we partnered with a researcher who had a great idea for an interesting technology platform. Typically, we work with that passionate scientific founder or entrepreneur, and we're not trying to offer them lab space. So they will and there's a lot of now contract lab space you can get from biolabs and launch labs and J labs and the kind of the Lab Central Biolabs network and others, right? In Chicago, they're building out lab space. So we will fund them, and then they will get lab space if it's needed. But one of the things that's a little differentiating from us is that we don't really get too involved in drug discovery. So we usually want to see a lead compound, ideally an optimized lead, but even if we have to do some medicinal chemistry work, that can be outsourced and we can guide, kind of that direction. And so, we're more administrative oversight, strategy, design of the program. We have a whole network, so if we need a regulatory consultant to write a briefing document, like we know who to call, or IND enabling tox, or we need to manufacture this, lipid nanoparticle, who should we go to? Or we need to do some disease model work. So how do we find the best models to work with, whether that's in academia or whether that's at a CRO? So we really leverage our experience and our network to give them the right kind of, tools and context.
And do you primarily just work with companies that are developing drugs, or do you also, reach out into other life science areas as well?
Yeah, well, it's a great question. So Xontogeny, we generally are drug developers, and Xontogeny is what we call a seed collaborative investment model. It's not a fund. It's a company. We have paid staff, and we have a balance sheet that can write seed checks, and we take equity for that. So it operates almost like a fund, but it's in a standalone company. Now, that same team helps us evaluate opportunities for later stage venture capital investment. So that team is the arm of Perceptive Advisors. Perceptive Advisors has been a 20-plus year life science, public equity, hedge fund. They diversified. They became one of the biggest crossover investors over the last 10 years. They were the first institutional specialty life science investor to do a SPAC, so they're on their fifth SPAC. They have credit funds, so they're on their fourth credit fund. So they're a multi-stage investor. I am the portfolio manager of the Perceptive Xontogeny venture funds, and the team at Xontogeny does a lot of that due diligence to determine what are the right investments to make. And then we go to the hedge fund investment team in New York to get another review and objective, because they're looking at every other VC out there. Right. And so we want that value of an objective look. Don't just pick us because we're part of the organization. We want you to use the same level of scrutiny of what we decide to invest in. So there's two investment vehicles, Xontogeny for seed, Perceptive Xontogeny Venture Fund for Series A, Series B. But the same team is kind of evaluating that. So Xontogeny, to answer your question, we tend to focus on seeds that are more on the drug development side. The venture fund, though, invests broadly. So we can invest in devices. We have a diagnostic company. We have a tools company. We have a CDMO for gene therapy. We have a digital CRO we're invested in. We have a platform enabling technology, that polymer that changes the drug-like characteristics. So we have a broad base of life sciences beyond just drugs from the venture fund. But Xontogeny is where we really bring the most value, because we understand early drug development, and that's where it tends to, a lot of things can go wrong.
Sure.
And that's where good, efficient use of capital is really important. When you're writing a $2 million seed check, you don't want to squander that. So for our seed model, we tend to focus on drugs. We do look at devices and diagnostics and all that, but a lot of times they fall out because they're just too early. And but those companies can come back to us when they're ready for their Series A.
Very good. And what brings you to Bio from the Bayou?
Yeah. Well, part of what we are trying to position ourselves as is that you don't have to be in Boston or San Francisco or Kendall Square, Cambridge, Massachusetts, to have success. And we know that great technologies come from all over the world, but not just these biotech hubs. And so when you have a good research institution, there's a lot of good technology there. And what they're usually lacking is what we try to bring, which is that industry experience. They don't have, thousands of drug developers that have been there, done that, in all of these geographies. So what I do is I go to a lot of these overlooked centers of good research and make sure that they're aware that they can partner with us. So what's interesting about Bio on the Bayou, Tulane is great, a lot of Louisiana institutions, but they're also attracting a lot of other institutions from the South. So, more than a dozen, I think 18 are represented over 2 days at this conference. And those are exactly our target, audience. And the nice thing is if there's an entrepreneur attached, we say, you can stay where you are. We don't care where the technology comes from. We don't care where the company's headquartered. And especially now on Zoom, we can do our meetings week to week, and we don't have to all be physically in the same place. So it really serves our model well to get to know these other systems. I was in Dallas last week. I've been in a lot of these other kind of growing hubs. Chicago, there's a lot going on there.
Yeah,
so we think Bio on the Bayou. I was at the last one they did was I think 2019.
Right.
And really happy to be back here.
Yeah, it's just exciting to see what they're doing. And I came in last night, really saw a flurry of activity all through the night. Even in this building that we're in, you could see, I'm staying just across the street, you could see, just a flurry of activity here. And great to see that. Also great to see just in general, all the companies that are here as well. I'm so excited to get to see, so many different people here, and hope to walk away with just some great connections as well.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and so we're going to follow up with Shobha next.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited to have that conversation, go a little bit deeper into her side of the business as well. And Chris, I wanted to thank you so much for being here. Thanks so much for being a guest on Life Science Success.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. Great to be here.
Thank you.
All right. Was that what you were?